The next component of your growth model is going to be your marketing plan. The way I want you to think about the marketing plan is really how many sales qualified leads do we need to produce in order to hit the bookings target that we set for our revenue goals. So everything that we talk about is going to be framed around that sales qualified lead target. We often call that the closed one of marketing, and we're going to see what it takes from a planning perspective to hit that sales qualified lead target. And we'll walk through a live example later as well. So one part that's really important is going to be the channel distribution of those SQLs. So are they coming from paid advertising? Are they coming from events? How much is getting sourced from sales, from customer success? And making sure you have a target and efficiency expectations for each channel. Next is going to be your cost per sales qualified lead. Best way to look at this is take historical data, look at your marketing budget, and then divide it over how many sales qualified leads had been produced per channel. This will give you the efficiency metric that you need in order to project the marketing budget you need in the future to hit your new sales qualified leads target. After that, you're going to want to look at the marketing calendar. Just like in the sales capacity plan, when we were looking at the lag time between ramp time of a seller, ramp time of a marketing initiative to produce sales qualified leads is an extremely important component to time those SQL targets. All right, let's hop into a live example of constructing this marketing plan. I want to make sure everybody walks away with the ability to construct this on their own. So we're going to do a simple 4-quarter model. You'll notice I did throw a 5th quarter in there. We'll talk about that in a second. If you need to adjust this monthly, that's something that you can do as well. If you need to have a monthly plan, for the purpose of this lesson, I think it'll be easier to look at it quarterly, but you adjust the cadence as you need to. So the first thing that I'm going to put on here is the bookings targets. So I took the bookings targets from the capacity plan. So let's say Q1 is going to be $1 million. Q2 is 1.3 million. Q3 is going to be 1.75. That's when a lot of those sellers start to hit their full production ramp. And then Q4 is going to be the same thing, 1.75 million. Now, we don't have a target for Q4 of the previous year, but I'm going to explain why this is important. So after that, we're going to do the SQL targets. So a couple assumptions. One assumption is going to be your conversion rate. So your conversion rate from sales qualified lead to closed won. This is going to be the basis for how you derive how many SQLs and at what dollar value you need to hit the bookings targets that you set for the sales team. So for this example, I'm going to assume that the SQL to close conversion rate is 20%. And then the other component that's really important is your sales cycle. And I'm going to say sales cycle from SQL to close. And we're going to say that that takes 1 quarter. So 90 days or 1 quarter sales cycles. And then the other thing that I'm going to add here as an assumption is the production of pipeline per dollar budget will produce $10 of pipeline. So $1 budget produces $10 of pipeline. So something that we're going to go back and take a look at is the SQLs needed to hit those booking targets. So again, we're going to be starting with those booking targets as the basis and foundation for what the SQL targets need to be. And this is why this offset is so important. So the first quarter I'm going to be looking at is actually Q4 before Q1. So if we have a 20% conversion rate and it's a 90-day sales cycle or it takes a quarter to close, that means in order to hit $1 million in bookings in Q1, we needed to have produced $5 million in pipeline in the quarter before. So that way, if 20% converts, it takes 90 days to do it. In Q1, you're going to have $1 million of bookings. Now let's keep going quarter by quarter. So then in order to hit your Q2 targets, you're going to need $6.5 million in pipeline to achieve that. In Q2, you're going to need to build 8.75 million. In Q3, you'll need to produce 8.75 million. And I'm going to assume you're going to keep the same goals or higher moving into the next year. So I'm also going to assume that you'll need 8.75 million there too. So that's why it's so important to be measuring your conversion rate, measuring your sales cycle, so you know exactly when you need that pipeline to hit so you can hit your future bookings targets. Now the next step, this division will be different depending on the company you're in and what your business is. But the next step is going to be doing this by channel. So I'll give you a couple examples. You may have a paid ads channel. You may have an events channel, your website, and then sales, CS referrals, and then maybe partners. And then it's going to be very important to allocate these overall SQL targets across channel at the assumed percentage you think should come from each channel. Okay, now that we have the SQL targets that are set up to achieve the bookings goals, one of the most important questions is, what type of marketing budget do you need in order to achieve the goals that you just put on paper? So what we're going to look at, I'm not going to take a look at Q4 for this purpose. I'm going to assume that was baked into the previous year's plan. So I'm going to look at the budget for these 4 quarters, and I'm going to look at that baseline of $1 of budget equals $10 of pipeline. So the overall quota for pipeline, if you will, is going to be 32.75 million. So in order to achieve the goals, assuming that your budget historically has produced $10 of pipeline, you would need a $3.275 million marketing budget in order to achieve those goals. Now, one thing that's really important to note is this efficiency metric that we talked about over here for your budget to pipeline. You should really be doing this by channel. So this isn't something that you really should be aggregating into one, but every company is going to be a little different. So take a look at efficiency by channel, SQL expectations by channel, and then have an expected budget by channel to put together your overall marketing budget.